All right. Been a couple weeks. Um, Finally a little bit to talk about media wise, which is nice. Kind of felt like, last time was kind of me just picking random shit to talk about, dumping all over Star Wars as you do. Hopefully everybody's getting ready for a fun St. Patty's next week. I'll just be working like a normal day, but you know, I also don't claim to be 164th Irish or some bullshit like every other asshole who just wants an excuse to get drunk instead of just saying that they want an excuse to get drunk. Um, the I guess we'll start off with the Harry Potter announcements for casting for the HBO show. Seems like people are pretty fucking mad because they're casting a black Snape, which I'll be honest, I thought even the John Lithgow casting choice was a bit suspect just because, they already had one Dumbledore die and he's so old. Not that they need to cast somebody who's like 50, but when you're playing on a TV series, it's probably going to take a decade ish, depending on how crazy they get with the visuals and all that. You want the actor to live the whole way through and not have to do another recast for one of the central characters. So I thought even the John Lithgow casting, although I like him as an actor, was a bit just practically speaking. But we'll see how it turns out for John Lithgow. The Black Snape thing seems to be very uninspiring, I think, for people's confidence in how faithful are they going to be really. And this is always the issue that comes up with race swapping. Like, you'll never hear people, or at least I don't, complain about Samuel Jackson being Nick Fury or Morgan Freeman being Red in Shawshank Redemption. Obviously, in the Shawshank Redemption book, his nickname is Red. He's an Irish guy. I haven't read the book, but, at least that aspect of it. But, it's never as simple as just, well, we picked the best guy for the job, and they just happen to look not like the character, or the way the character looks is irrelevant, or it's irrelevant to the story. Snape, in particular, has a very distinct look. Obviously, he's kind of ugly and baddish, and his whole look plays into his whole reclusive character, isolated, ugly, bullied kid simping after a woman. Like, it's all built into it. And also the fact that, he's getting bullied now. That if they're willing to recast him that way, that there's not a chance in hell that they're not going to try to make the racial component at least a part of the character now. Oops. Sorry, having OBS issues like a fucking boomer. That they're not going to be able to help themselves and include some kind of racial undertones to him getting bullied. When the racism in Harry Potter, and this is obviously a big world building thing, is a non-issue because they've already divided it into humans or wizards and muggles, right? Like, your non-magic users. So you already know that shit is like race, like it's kind of like in fantasy, right? If you watch a lot of anime and shit, when you have a fantasy world where you have all kinds of different species, race becomes a non-issue between humans because then you have like seriously, I got a fucking glitch because they become like species issues instead. I think that's a pretty safe bet, and you'll see this in a lot of sci-fi in general. That if, if humans encounter aliens, a lot of our inter-country issues or international issues become negligent because now there's a bigger focus. So the world needs to unite against the bigger focus, common enemy, that whole deal. Wow, is this serious? So in the Harry Potter wizarding world, it's a similar thing. Like racial shit is not prominent because there's already differences in the humans. So to me, I'm just really not optimistic about how faithful they'll stay in other components. And who knows, right? Like How to Train Your Dragon, at least from the trailer, they race swapped Astrid, but from the trailer, that movie looks like a shot-for-shot remake of there we go. Of a shot-for-shot remake of the original. So it could just be that they do have the self-control. Hey, what's up, Tyler? That they do have the self-control, and it really will just be they swap his race and it's never mentioned again. I'm just not optimistic. And that's why people get upset about race swaps in general or gender swaps, is because very rarely is it done purely out of meritocracy and purely for just the intentions of wanting the best show you can make. It's almost always done, at least in recent memory, for other motivating factors, like, you simply want diversity, or you want to promote a certain narrative about racism, and you want to turn everything into a modern day commentary, whatever the case may be. So, could this literally be the only change and everything about the show is faithful? Could be. But I would be shocked if that's the case. And I can definitely see why people were pissed. I mean, I'm not as mad as other people because I like Harry Potter, but not the way people from my generation do, where we all grew up on it and everyone just, is a fucking fanfic weirdo and whatever else they're doing, right? Like everybody's looking super deep into the lore. I just don't care that much about Harry Potter, so I'm not going to get viscerally upset. But it is disappointing to see decisions that are being seemingly made for other reasons than just focusing on the story as it is. But we'll see, I mean, right now they've only announced a couple castings that I'm aware of. I'm curious to see if they do more of this. I'm also curious to see if they do things like changing some of the names of other characters. One that comes to mind would be Cho Chang. Like, I don't think it's a big deal, but the crowd that gets upset about that type of shit, I see like meme about this all the time about how like elaborate the English names are, and the Asian character's name is Cho Chang, which sounds like almost a joke, or a joke of a stereotypical name. No, Tyler, I haven't. I've been I sent a message in the Discord. I don't know if you saw it or not. That since your Deadwood request is for March, April, March is a busy month for me, both personally and channel wise, because I like to do April Fool's videos. So those are extra videos I have to get done before April 1st, obviously. So that on April 1st, I can just upload them. And I actually just watched Mr. Divine's request for this month yesterday. And and I recorded the video for it. It's not edited yet. Probably won't be for a couple days. But Deadwood will probably be more of an April thing for me. It's just kind of a matter of time right now. I've also got family visiting next week. So when they're here, I won't be able to do anything for the channel, including even just watching shows. Because I'll be at work all day and then going to spend time with them. But I am looking forward to it. I just haven't gotten to it yet. And it's funny because I think I watched like half of episode 1 of season 3. And then I just got busy with other shit. Cocksuckers from Yankton. But yeah, I'm not going to say anything else about the Snape thing. I just wanted to talk about it because it's just a massive disappointment. And you have to ask yourself, like, do they even want the viewership and the money? Because the fan casting that I see posted the most is Adam Driver. And I believe Adam Driver is more of the appropriate age. I know people bitched about Alan Rickman and kind of the aging up that they did in the movies. Because I think Alan Rickman was in his 50s, I want to say, when the movies started. And the parents in the books are supposed to be, I thought, like early, like 20 when they die. And then they would have been like early 30s, I'm pretty sure, by the time that Harry's in school. So obviously, Alan Rickman is way older than what they should have been. And Adam Driver, I think, is around 40-ish. So I can totally get the fan casting for that and why people think he'd be a good fit. Plus, he's a little bit doofy looking. I mean, I know all the fucking weirdos for Disney Star Wars like to, damn it. All the weirdos for Disney Star Wars like to say that he's good looking and hot and whatever because of the Raylo shit. But he is doofy looking, so I think he would have been a pretty appropriate casting. And I can totally see why the fans were calling for it. I mean, I kind of get the fans calling for, Keanu Revan too. I don't know if I'd say the fans always get it right, but I think Adam Driver would be a good choice, and he's a good actor. I mean, it sucks that he's in kind of a lot of bad movies, but he's always good in whatever he's in. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about today? Oh, Daredevil. So Daredevil Reborn, the first couple episodes I thought were pretty meh. And to me, this just reeks of another bringing something back way too late and they've just lost their touch. And I think that a lot of people will be bought in because of that first fight scene. I wonder how many people actually went back and watched Daredevil, like the Netflix Daredevil, before this season started. Because I went back last night actually and just kind of put the first couple episodes on, because it's been a while. I mean, I watched them all whenever the 3 seasons were out, so I think it's been 7 years. Tyler said he watched my review. I'm in the minority right now, it seems like, but it's interesting because I have seen people like Mauler and like the usual suspects be more in like the camp that I'm in. Mauler was way harsher than I was. He called it shit, but I thought it was fine. I don't think the nostalgia bait is going to last long. And they've made a point, like this is just such an example of another vanity project type deal where they're using a nostalgia and kind of shallow shit to write the show that they want to write. I mean, they literally use the first 15 minutes to write the old characters out of the show. Some characters, like Foggy's girlfriend that he had at the end of season 3, don't even get mentioned. And then they bring them in with their younger, they'll be better than the original versions type deal. And the first episode had a big, it looks like one long take fight scene. And people are on board with it. I think that they tried to hide a lot of it in the fog. I thought the CGI looked like shit. When you rewatch, if you want a similar scene that's done better, go back to Daredevil season 1. I think it's the end of episode 2. And it's the same type of deal where the camera stays in the hallway. That's where a lot of the fighting is. You hear noises of the fight in the other room. Then the characters come back out into the hallway and they're still fighting, right? Very similar to what they did for episode 1 of Born Again. Except it's crazy how much clearer the fights are in the original Netflix series. I'm about 4 episodes in right now, 3 or 4 episodes in, and there's a fight in almost every episode, at least one. And a lot of them are in the dark, because obviously he's lawyering during the day, working at night as Daredevil. But even with all the fights being in the dark and kind of shitty lighting, they're so much easier to follow than what we got in Born Again. Like that fight at the end of episode 2 for Born Again, you know, it's gross and like they do bone breaking and it's pretty brutal, but it's impossible to see what the fuck's going on. Like go pick any fight from season 1 Daredevil and watch it in comparison to the 2 that we just got for the first couple episodes of Born Again, and you'll see how kind of hollow it feels and just inferior. And you know, you can say it's unfair to compare it to one of the best Marvel things. That's fine. But I don't think you get the benefit of people's nostalgia and emotional investment without the expectations that come with it. Like, you know, they are riding Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio right now and their performances to give the appearance of a continuation, to give the appearance of a good show. And I think it's going to get worse as it goes. The pacing is fucking bizarre. There's dialogue that just makes no sense. And you know, all these Disney shows and whatever have a trend, maybe streaming in general, but Disney in particular, have a trend of like the first episode being like, okay, that's interesting. You know, we've seen this with Star Wars too, right? Like, okay, like maybe they'll go here and here with this thing. Like that's a neat plot point. And they just completely fucking abandon it or forget about it, or it just gets worse as it goes on. Like, that's kind of my expectation for the rest of this season. And, you know, it's only 9 episodes. All the previous ones were 13. You know, they've gotten rid of the Catholic aspect to a pretty big degree. Yeah. Yeah, Tyler says that when they brought Daredevil and Kingpin in for Echo and She-Hulk, that he knew they weren't going to be very good. And yeah, that's the thing too, is like they actually reference Echo. I didn't mention it in the video because it's just one line, they kind of laugh it off. But there's even that kind of like, you know, like we don't want to acknowledge like the other parts of the story that we've been in, but you kind of have to. Like, again, you've tied it into everything else, right? Like they mentioned in the very first episode from the Avengers that he gets an apartment cheaper or the area is damaged or whatever. What's up? iStat's in Vegas. Yeah, I'm sure you're tired of shit with the clock change, huh? And being 3 hours behind. You know, like they mentioned in the first episode about the city being damaged, and it's obviously an Avengers reference. And now it's like you have Kingpin campaigning on being anti-vigilante. Damn it. And vigilantes have saved the world 100 times at this point. So, like, the MCU in general has run into massive world building issues. The first couple episodes were largely boring, and they've kind of shit all over the characters. They've replaced them with younger, and I'm assuming going to be better versions. The whole thing is just the typical, you know, shit that you don't want to see from Daredevil. And it's a shame because the first 3 seasons were some of the best live action Marvel shit ever. Maybe the best. And, you know, even like all the talking and the conversations like move everything forward. You get a shitload of character work, a shitload of backstory. This episode felt like it wanted to do that. I don't know. The whole thing is just fucking... It's just disappointing. I'm just not expecting much. I think it'll be brutal, and that'll hide some of it for people. But then it'll be another one of those situations where people defend it, and then a month later, after it's ended, you know, people just forget that it exists. Hey, what's up, Alpha? Put it all on black, Istad. And as far as one of the characters being a hacker, you're kind of close. That the sort of Foggy replacement, what's his damn name, Chuck or something. I can't remember his damn name now. He's like the computer investigator guy. It seems like. So I'm assuming they'll give him some kind of bullshit. You know, he can just find anything. Oh, it was deleted, but I hacked the mainframe and found a ghost phantom file, whatever the fuck. And it's just a shame. It's not yeah, I'm doing alright. I hope you're doing alright. Hopefully you're doing better. Alpha. Um I was just hoping that they would at least be consistent with the characters. But it's kind of already not. Like, if you saw my video, I made the joke that I don't really like Catholics, even though my wife is Catholic. Sorry, I don't like Catholicism, not Catholic people. Even though my wife is Catholic. But the show has almost completely gotten rid of that shit. Caucasian Sasquatch. That's a nice name. Are you half white, half Asian, or what? Based on the way you capitalize that. That's funny. Mainly we just hang out and talk about shit, Caucasian. So obviously I'm going to give it a chance. I hope it's good. But it just seems like they wanted to speed run, They wanted to speed run into their story and just dump everything that they didn't care about. So you end up with a skinwalker or a husk or whatever word you want to use, to me, where they're treating Daredevil as a vessel to tell the story that they want to tell. But, maybe we'll get some cool fights. Maybe the dialogue will feel a little bit more natural as it goes. But, Foggy and Karen were established so well in the first couple episodes when you compare it. Oh, okay, I got you. That's good, Alpha. Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm the same way. It's just a constant thing. But the first couple episodes, right when you get introduced to Karen, I think the first time I literally just watched it last night. I really am going fucking senile. The first time that you see her, she is covered in blood. She just woke up on the floor next to a dead guy, and she's being arrested. Like, obviously she's super upset in jail. She's saying she didn't do anything. She's freaking the fuck out. Matt and Foggy come take care of her. She has a conversation with Matt at his place. And you get to know both of them right away. You get their dynamic very quickly. They hire her to work there. Her and Foggy have good banter. It's very obvious that Foggy's attracted to her, but she's not interested. Like, all of that within, 1 or 2 episodes and a little bit of screen time. And it's crazy. They established Kingpin off screen for like 3 episodes. Like, he might appear right at the end of 2. You might see the back of his head. But you're getting other people referencing him and not wanting to cross him just over and over, showing how scary he is. So it's just night and day when you compare the two. I see a Caucasian. Yeah, you're a busy Sasquatch. I got you. You gotta go hide from the paparazzi trying to find you. Pretty sure Sasquatch is the same thing as Bigfoot. Maybe I'm just making shit up. Anyway, yeah, so if you haven't watched Daredevil, the Netflix series, in a while, I would highly, highly recommend going back to watch it. To me, what we're seeing right now is sort of the same thing that happened with Deadpool and Wolverine, where people forgot that Deadpool, you just want to be Squatch? Okay. All right. Squatch is shorter the better. Not what she said. But I would highly recommend going back to watch it. What I was saying is that I think what we're seeing is kind of the same thing as Deadpool and Wolverine, where it's been so long since people have seen the previous entries that they've forgotten what made them good. That they kind of just remember, like, oh yeah, like, you know, Daredevil had cool fights, right? Like that's why I like Daredevil. They ignore all of the character work that went into it. They forget about all the little scenes that tie things together that make, you know, that make you emotionally invested in your characters, that get you attached to them so that when they fight, you give a shit if they get hurt. So, and, you know, to be clear, when I say Deadpool and Wolverine, Deadpool 1 and 2 are mostly serious movies. Like, yeah, Deadpool himself is very quippy, and obviously he's doing his wall breaking and talking to the audience. You know, that is definitely a part of the movies, obviously. But the first Deadpool in particular was a very serious story. Squash says he wants to watch Daredevil wrestle Spider-Man. Yeah, you got to watch him catch a break for Spider-Man, right? In No Way Home. But the lost my fucking train of thought there. I was gonna say it's too early, but I actually started the stream late today, so it's already like 1:00 thanks to the time change. But you know, God, now I'm mixing the names up. Deadpool 1, you know, a lot of that he's getting tortured. He's grieving about losing his life, losing his girl. Like, there's a lot of heart there and a lot of emotional weight to the story that Deadpool and Wolverine don't have. And people will think that they're all the same, but they kind of don't. I think they just forget how much actually goes into those movies. Really? What's up, Jeffrey? So Jeffrey says Netflix is being banned in Canada. How does that even work? I mean, I'm not going to suggest you get a VPN and, you know, use it as a workaround, but I don't really understand, I guess, why. Alpha says, I wish TikTok, Alpha says, I wish TikTok would be banned instead of Netflix. Yeah, no shit. I mean, TikTok is a fucking cancer. Like China has banned TikTok in their own country. That is fucking crazy, though, about Canada banning Netflix. I'll have to look into that. Because that is CRTC. I mean, is this like because they're pissed off at America, or is this like a TV thing? That's fucking wild. But I'm not going to keep going on about Daredevil. I would just suggest that, you know, you revisit the original stuff as a reminder of what made it good before sucking off Born Again for being just like the original shit. I mean, you know, they want the... It's crazy because season 3, for people who don't remember, I know I said I was going to change topics, but it's irritating me. Oh, okay. So Jeffrey says that it's a Canadian Radio Telecommunications Commission is the CRTC, and it's a reaction to tariffs. Wow. That just seems spiteful to your own people. I mean, I don't know, but that doesn't really seem like it would help anybody. Jesus. Plus, I would imagine that a lot of shit from Netflix gets filmed in Vancouver and stuff. I would think. I know Vancouver's a pretty big place for filming in general. I don't see why Netflix wouldn't be a part of that. But what I was going to say was season 3 of Netflix, right, is season 3 of the Netflix Daredevil. A lot of that is him struggling with wanting to kill Kingpin. And, you know, having that internal battle because he just can't seem to put Kingpin away. But even in the end, he manages to, you know, essentially get around it, right? And not have to kill, because that's a really tight part of his morality. So this show kind of uses the first 15 minutes to say, well, that's what we want to do. Thanks for setting it all up for us 7 years ago with, you know, almost 40 episodes of good material and great character work. And then they have him try to fucking kill Bullseye in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Get rid of Foggy, get rid of Karen. Like, they just, they want the fruits of the labor and none of the associated responsibility to the audience, which is a bummer. But I'll move on from Daredevil. I didn't even plan on talking about it that long, since I already made a video and we're only 2 nights into the season. So the last thing that I had specifically to talk about, and obviously we can talk about other shit until I go grab lunch with my wife, is the movie Mickey 17. Alpha says that she's angry about the How to Train Your Dragon live action because it's Lion King 2019 all over again. That's kind of what I expect too, Alpha. And unfortunately, my guess is that it will make probably $1 billion. I mean, the preview looks like a literal shot-for-shot remake. And if the visuals are as good for the whole movie as they are in the preview, and they use the super famous song when he takes Toothless for a ride and all that, I can easily see it just crushing at the box office. But the movie Mickey 17 just came out. I was actually middling on it in my review. And the more that I thought about it, the more I'm like, man, that is a lot of wasted potential. And the social commentary is just so in your face. You know, I kind of let it slide because the movie, if you haven't seen it, which I'm assuming most people haven't, there wasn't a ton of advertising. It's also zany that it tries to kind of hide behind that for its lack of subtlety. And for people who don't know what I'm referring to, the guy who directed it and wrote it, what's his name? Boon Joon-ho. He did Parasite, Snowpiercer. He's done a few other things that I haven't seen but are apparently also super political. He seems to have like kind of an anti-American thing to him. Absolutely anti-capitalism. So that's his lens when it seems like with everything that he creates. I'll be honest, I thought Parasite was overrated. I thought it was fine. I don't know. I didn't find it particularly compelling. Maybe because it won all those awards and got so much praise, my expectations were too high. It was just fine for me. Snowpiercer, which is the only other movie from him that I've seen, I actually rewatched about a month ago, and that movie is not very good. And you know how, like, there's some lines that when you hear them, you're like, man, the dialogue is so on the nose that it's like laughable. Like it almost seems like a parody of what it's trying to do. There's a line in Snowpiercer. If you haven't seen it, this is a spoiler. It's fucking like 15 years old. where Chris Evans, because the whole thing, right, is the poor people were at the back of the train, whole world's frozen over, blah, blah, blah. So they live on the train. They're kind of, the train fuels itself, and they're waiting for the things outside to cool down so they can repopulate the earth, whatever. World building is dog shit. And so, he is going to the front of the train, but the stuff they eat is like compressed bugs into bars and insects and shit, right? And then literally it's just different classes of people as you go forward in the train. So it's a very subtle commentary on society. And there's a line in there where Chris Evans is talking to somebody else. I just watched it. I wish I could remember the whole conversation. I think that they're talking about if he should shut the train down or not because it would kill everybody. Even if it's a shitty society, it is all the people left. And he says the line, "I know what babies taste like." And it's just like, what are we fucking doing here? Like you've eaten babies is how subtle we want to be with our fucking commentary. I don't know. It's just one of those lines that, like, when they wrote it, you can tell they were jacking off their writing. And they were like, oh, this is so good. Like we got them. Like, this is the line, right? It does all the dramatic music and the framing and all that. And I just fucking busted out laughing. It's like one of the worst lines I think I've ever fucking heard. And Mickey 17 is kind of a whole movie of that. Let's see. Oh, Alpha says the visuals and acting in the trailers sucked this far for How to Train Your Dragon. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, if you're that focused on the details, I'm sure you're going to be disappointed. And I do agree with you. The acting that we've seen has been, I wouldn't say awful, but definitely I'm in wait and see mode for what to expect there, So Mickey 17 is about as subtle as the "I've eaten babies" or I know what babies taste like" line. Except they don't do anything interesting. So if you've seen the preview, Mickey is expendable. They can just reprint him every time he dies. So he does all the dangerous stuff. They use him to create a vaccine at one point, right? They just keep putting it in him until his body evolves. Whatever, fine. It's a neat idea. And the movie poses some interesting morality questions about, would clones have souls if you believe in that type of thing? What's the ethics of cloning people? All the shit you would expect. But then in the movie, when it gets to those parts, they last about 2 minutes as like they pose the question and then they just don't care. A lot of people are. Oh, and one other thing too is the world building sucks balls. So when they reprint him, and this actually was a question from Shamrock Dragon in my chat. She actually brought up a question I didn't think about, which is a good point. She's like, oh, so I assume resources aren't an issue since they can literally reprint humans. Well, it turns out that they are. And somebody on Reddit told me today, actually, that apparently in the book, it goes into detail about how costly it is, how they cut his rations when they had to reprint him because it does take so much energy. So the book tries to account for that. The movie does not. The movie just plays it as kind of a joke. They keep reprinting him. They're like, yeah, we throw all the poop and trash into the incinerator and we can still remake you because you're literal trash. Again, capitalism, bad, downtrodden, or the downtrodden being trampled on by society. Alpha Dragon's glad that there's another female dragon in the chat. Yeah, Shamrock Dragon has her own channel. She does a pretty good variety of stuff. She does some videos similar to what I do where she talks about stuff from a writing perspective. I mean, I don't do that explicitly, but I tend to focus on that, on writing in general. And then she does music. She does some gaming stuff with some other small YouTubers. So, yeah, you can find her profile if you go. Actually, she commented on my Mickey 17 video if you want to go find her channel. But yeah, so she pointed that out. It was a good a good point that she made without even seeing the fucking movie. And then I noticed some other stuff too that I like. There was one thing I actually was pissed off at myself for not mentioning in the video, because I know a lot of YouTubers script. I don't, because I just don't have the time. And I honestly, I kind of found that I didn't really change much from my initial thoughts to a script anyway. But sometimes I do forget to mention stuff that I want to mention, which is a downside. And one of the things that I forgot to mention, which I irritated myself with, was in Mickey 17, in the beginning, Mark Ruffalo, who's like the dictator, president, whatever, of the expedition ship that they're on, because they're trying to find a new planet. That's why they have Mickey, blah, blah, blah. He gives this big speech about how if they keep clapping for him too long when he comes out, they'll burn like 5 calories, right? And then he's like, you know, we have all kinds of activities that waste calories, and this is a 4.5-year expedition. He's like, and this includes sexual intercourse. He's like, obviously when we get there, we're going to need to breed like rabbits, blah, blah, blah. He's like, but we might have to ban sex because it wastes so many calories. You know, which like, he's like kind of a televangelist. Some people say Trump parody. I don't know. I can kind of see it, kind of not. And the director said not. So, you know, like from a religious satirical thing, banning sex isn't original. But I think the idea of banning sex because of the wasted calories on a space expedition is a cool idea. And especially because in the movie when they do it, when he's giving that speech, we're seeing Mickey have sex with his girlfriend. So you're like, oh, this might be a pretty big point of tension, you know? Like, is he going to get caught having sex and they're going to punish him, but he's expendable? Maybe they'll punish her as a punishment to him, right? All kinds of shit you can do with it. And literally the next cut is 4.5 years later. They're outside the planet they need to get to. Never fucking brought up again. So there's shit like that. There's a part where Mickey 17 and 18, again, if you've seen the preview, you already know that, debate each other about who has more of a right to life, because they're supposed to both get killed if there's multiples because of the ethics. And they like have a little argument about who has more of a right to life because you know, Mickey 18 is like, well, you've lived a life. I've only been alive for 2 hours. It's not fair for me to die. And Mickey 17 is like, well, I didn't die, so you weren't supposed to be born yet. How's that my fault? And then the conversation just ends there and it's never brought up again. So there's a ton of shit like that in the movie where you're like, oh, that's a neat idea. And then the movie just says, fuck it. And just doesn't touch it, doesn't explore it, doesn't take a side or an interesting position, just moves on. Alpha says she's not touching the sex stuff because she's asexual. Well, that's the thing too, is because the movie wants to be political so bad, there's this dinner scene where Ruffalo and his wife, who are running shit, are talking to this hot blonde girl, hot brunette. And she's at dinner with Mickey, and it's those four. And Mark Ruffalo keeps talking about her genes and how she's like great breeding, like she'll be great for breeding and colonizing the new planet, which is, you know, kind of an important fucking thing when you're talking about saving the species and you've only got a certain number of ships and people that can go to different planets. Reproduction, pretty big fucking part of it. So she gets all pissy and goes, do you just see me as a uterus? And, you know, in the movie, like, as the audience, you can tell the movie wants you to be like, oh, got him, suck it, you know, whatever. Like, take that, chuds, whatever fucking bullshit. And in a normal context, that would be correct. But in the context of a space expedition with the intention of colonizing other planets, you know, you kind of are just there for breeding, men and women. Like, I don't, it's a fucking bizarre It's a fucking bizarre thing to be mad at when you signed up for the colonizing expedition. And then also the movie goes to the trouble, which I guess she's bisexual, which, whatever, fine. But her girlfriend dies in the beginning and she's upset. And then when the movie ends, she's with a new girlfriend. And she also wants to hook up with Mickey, 17 at one point. But then she is a lesbian, and it's like, well, you can be a lesbian and still have kids. Like, we have technology. Well, first of all, we have technology already to get people pregnant without sex. But when you're talking about an intergalactic mission, they obviously had the fucking technology and turkey basters or whatever the fuck for her to have kids without having sex. It's just such a weird setting. And this is like kind of when politics fucks stuff up, right? Is it such an inappropriate setting for a character to be upset about something like that when the specific goal and purpose are made very clear? Alpha says she would just die rather than breed. That's what I mean, though, is like, that's fine. If you're not wanting kids and that's not your thing and whatever, who cares? On Earth, where we have plenty of people to fuck, plenty of people to have kids, nobody's worried about humanity dying off suddenly. But in the context of this is a space expedition to create colonies for humans to survive, like, yeah, shut the fuck up. Like, having kids is arguably the most important function in that scenario. So there's just all that kind of shit where the politics just gets in the way of anything interesting. And you can tell that mentality just bleeds throughout the movie. I will say, I saw people like Nerdrotic, who I'm a fan of, and like Friday Night Tights, they were all ripping into the movie for Mark Ruffalo is supposed to be Trump, and his supporters are supposed to be MAGA supporters. And like, yeah, they wear red hats, but Mark Ruffalo's character is all over the place. I called him a televangelist repeatedly. He did seem like he was trying to do a bad Trump impersonation near the end, but the director said his goal was just to have him parody a bunch of actual dictators historically, and then he also liked the idea of him and his wife being like co-dictators. And he says that because they feed off each other and drive each other even crazier was his logic or reasoning. Which is, fine, whatever. I think that's interesting at least. But for me, I don't know, like, is every time a character wears a red hat, I'm supposed to assume it's a Trump allegory, or any kind of corrupt dictator or corrupt leader? I'm supposed to just assume it's Trump every single time. I don't know. That's just not. I don't want to view stuff through that lens. I can certainly see how you would view it that way, but also, people are doing it for Daredevil Born Again because Fisk is a corrupt politician on populism. Apparently, it's from the comics. People have said Lex Luthor became mayor. It's just a comic book thing. As much as I can avoid referencing meta things to talk about a story, I would prefer to. So to me, there was so much other blatant focus on classism and just kind of anti-human, what do they call them? Like the anti-natalist shit, that the movie has enough issues to reference without going straight to, oh, it's another Trump movie or anti-Trump movie. Overall, the movie was just fine. Probably not worth seeing in theaters. My wife, who's a little bit more normie than I am, said it was just really fucking boring. From what I've seen online, the consensus seems to be, if you're the type of person This is just what I'm gathering offline. Is if you're the type of person who hates Trump and also views the movie as a Trump allegory, then you'll probably like the politics of it. As a movie, it seems like most people just think it's dumb and boring. The comedy is kind of eh. Glenn from Walking Dead, or Stephen Yeun is his real name. His entire plot line was just unnecessary. Yeah, it's just a meh movie. Yeah, Alpha says that she leaned more on communists with red hats. See, I don't. If I didn't know what the creator's politics were, I might agree. But he's a pretty avowed socialist, from my understanding. And then because he's Korean, I don't know if they even have a different. I don't know what their view of capitalism is as a whole, anyway. Because I don't know, and this is purely just me guessing, and with very little knowledge. So let me make that clear. But I've seen where Korea has like a 55-hour standard work week. It seems like everything is crazy expensive. It seems like people there are really shallow and kind of look down on anybody who doesn't have designer shit or money. It seems to be a very materialistic culture, and that, from what I can gather, has led to some resentment toward capitalism, where it seems a lot more, a lot less gradient, I guess, in class, and a lot more hierarchical. And, the sort of class differences seem to manifest in a lot more negativity than I think they do in America. Broadly speaking, at least in America, most people are, just trying to get by. I think overall they're content with where they are and what they have. Obviously, everyone would like more money, more breathing room, whatever. But there also doesn't seem to be such a stark contrast from middle class to blue collar, at least lifestyle wise, I don't think, from, here. Well, North Korea, yeah. Well, yeah. Alpha said North Korea for sure. Yeah, North Korea is its own thing. I'm not even sure what I would compare North Korea to, because it just seems like, I mean, it seems like a hellish actual 1984, really. Like if 1984 came to life, I think North Korea is probably the closest thing, which is obviously terrible. And you can see the videos of the people screaming when Kim Jong-il died, and yeah, I mean that's its own nightmare. But I'm gonna leave it here for this one. Looks like we've been going for just under an hour. I kind of covered the stuff that I wanted to talk about. Got a pretty late start today thanks to the stupid time change. Let me see. I should be good for next weekend to stream. The one after, Senior Filthy Casual will be here, so I don't know if I'll have time to stream or not, or if he'll be gone by then. For the channel, right now I'm going to at least do Daredevil each week and Reacher each week. Movies, there's nothing coming out this week. I'll probably talk about Snow White. I agree, Alpha. I hate daylight savings time too. Such a pain in the ass, and there's really no reason for it now that we have electricity. I also watched and recorded, for Mr. Divine's request this month, of The Conversation, and I recorded a video about a manga that I've been reading. Those we edited hopefully sometime the next couple of days and get those out. And beyond that, yeah, it'll just kind of be the same as always, covering whatever I feel like covering. I do need to get my April Fool stuff recorded. Obviously having visitors in town cuts into my time. And just busy with work and all that whole deal. Being an adult, I am getting close to 1,000 subscribers, so that's fun. I think I still need like 40 more, which I will be honest is about 999 more than I ever expected. I only really expected my personal account. But yeah, so hopefully you guys will enjoy the April Fool's videos. Those are way different than my normal stuff, obviously. And yeah. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Try to have a good work week. And best of luck adjusting your sleep schedule by trying to go to bed tonight what feels like an hour earlier. Yeah, I'll see you next weekend too. Have a nice week. All right, I'll see you guys. Have a good Sunday. Whoops. Tried to move my mouse and spun the camera like an asshole.